My name is Kathy. I'm an ESL teacher in Edmonton, Alberta, and I wanted to talk about my experience with digital teaching over the past 2 years. It, of course, started for all of us with COVID, and the transition that I made from in-person teaching, which I love and loved, to digital teaching, and how my attitude and methods have changed over the last 2 years. When I first started teaching online, ESL online, I experienced it, I think, purely as loss. Loss of contact with the students, loss of the ability to use body language. I mostly teach beginner ESL students, and body language is a big part of trying to teach them basic vocabulary. Loss of contact with my colleagues. Suddenly we were all faced with these little postage stamp sized people instead of, fully their people. Loss of variety in my classes, being able to put larger classes in pairs and groups to work that way. It doesn't really work that way with beginner students. You can't send them all into a separate room, a Zoom room to work. So I think it was pure loss, and I can't really speak for my students, but I'm guessing there was a lot of loss there too. The social interaction they had. I was teaching one of the classes I taught senior people from downtown Edmonton. And they would go and do dancing after together. They had breaks together. They got to know each other. They had strong friendships. And there you are, all sitting in your individual house. And that's a loss of social life and connection. But I have over the last 2 years, I have a communications background. And one of the key attributes of a communications person is that you look at the medium and you adjust to the medium. And I've done that, and I've actually discovered that I really like digital teaching because I discovered, I think, 3 things. One, pretty quickly, I discovered I needed to move away from the black and white PDFs that I often used. I was really heavily reliant on photocopies, black and white photocopies of PDFs that people could fill in and various, exercises and that kind of thing, and flashcards that I would print out. I needed to move into actual digital resources, interactive digital resources. The other thing I discovered is an opportunity, of course, the places I work for, they can't afford color photocopies, but online you can be really colorful. You can use a lot of beautiful things to catch students' attention and that they might enjoy. And the third thing is fun, more fun. I think games, things I hadn't thought of. So I'm just going to run through some examples of each of those things. I'm going to share my screen and just run down, if we're going to look first at interactive resources. And pretty early on, I discovered 2 free sites. One's called LearnHip, the other's called Flipboard. And here's an example. I think this is going to be LearnHip. And this is sentence scrambles. So they're actually the sort of thing I used to cut up. I used to cut up pieces of paper as students to put them together on the board. But here you can just, looking for a, black pair of shoes. Check. Whoops, a black pair of shoes. Okay. Anyway, I don't know exactly how it goes, but you can unscramble them and check things. Okay. Here's Flipboard. This is kind of fun exercise that I did with a group. We were learning about capitals and provinces. So you click on the lock, you get a question, can even have a hint, right? And then you can find that that is the correct answer, right? So it's more interesting, and it wasn't really possible to do this in my classroom. Let's see, the other thing, again, this is Flipboard. These are very easy to use. Flipboard Learn Hip are free. Here's a very simple Flipboard manipulative exercise. It's very nice. I think that's all and then you just put things in there. You ask students to put things in their categories, right? So here's maybe under plants, you'd have seed, and you can even put things once you've got a certain number of columns, you can do different things. So I could put this like this, right? So I ask students, tell me, put these together. These are these would be the words that we've been looking at. There we go, water can, pot, hose. Go, right? So and you can do different things. You could do all kinds of things. You can do a map of the world if you've got some kind of geography lesson. You can do a cork board. You can do all kinds of things with this. So that's kind of an example of something that really we can only do digitally. And I mentioned that the second thing that you can really do online is visual beauty, color, interest, getting away from the black and white PDFs that again aren't interactive. You can't really fill them in very easily. So we not only get interactive resources, but we get things that will surprise and interest and sometimes delight your student. So here's when I was doing map of Canada. Here's a jigsaw puzzle. This is from Book Widgets, which does cost something. It costs $10 a month, but it is the most incredible set of different kinds of tools and resources. So, you can get the students to help you put this together. Where does everything go? We were learning about provinces and capitals. As I say, I'm teaching beginners. So you ask them there. We're going to do a map of Canada, and we're going to do it with a Book Widgets. What else? This people really like. I usually use this Flipboard randomizer at the end of a class. It's to review what we've talked about. So this is a pharmacy lesson, and we had these phrases, and you can just flip it around, and then you ask the students, what does this mean? Can you explain what this means? And you just flip it again, and you just keep going, right? Or you can do it one at a time. Anyway, I had students actually laugh with pleasure seeing this randomizer. So it's a fun way to review. It's visually interesting, kind of pretty. Here's a Canadian symbols. This is a Book Widgets. And this, we were doing, of course, Canadian symbols, and this was kind of an introduction to them. Here, of course, we have the beaver, and you click on this. Beaver lives in the water. They build houses in the water called dams. And even more stunningly, you can include a video with anything you want. So here, I've got, of course, hockey. Here's the information. Many Canadians play hockey. To make it even more informative, again, I have a video connected to this. So this is a beautiful, and here I have the moose, and of course, the information about the moose, large animals, and a moose walking around and we've got the moose call. So this is a way to kind of surprise and delight your students. I guess the final one I'll show is Video Ant. Video Ant's another free site. You can take any YouTube video and add information at certain points. So this is a video we were doing regions of Alberta, and you can play the video. And at a certain point, there's a Calgary pops up. Stop the video. We were talking about Central Alberta, where that was, the Badlands, Rocky Mountains. So those are all kind of interesting visual ways to teach your students. And then the final category, I've just put a few examples here. LearnHip's got lots of games. Actually, Flipboard has some. Jeopardy Labs, you can create Jeopardy game show quizzes. Crossword Labs. So here are a few. This is LearnHip. You have a board game, and you just have to go one, rolls the dice, and then this is a good review. We were doing a kind of a lesson on illnesses in English, what we call them. So each time you roll the dice, and they move a certain, usually they move a bit. Let's move it further. They'll move 3, and then go back 2 spaces, and they have to answer the question. And it's kind of a fun way, again, of reviewing the vocabulary we've done. Here, why do I need to learn English? This is Jeopardy Labs. We have one team. Let's start, and different reasons, so main categories. Your leader at work, this is based on vocabulary. So the answer here would be your boss, right? Where you have education reading for 200, you could have teams, work done after school. This is homework, you might want to help. This whole lesson was about why you want to learn English. You might want to help your children or grandchildren with their homework. So the answer would be, what is homework? And you can put teams together and you can have them sort of win, Jeopardy money, right? One of the nicest lessons I did was on an ATM, on using ATMs, and there was an actual ATM simulator. So students were getting money, so they could go through, get money, of course, they could go through all of the steps that you would need to, all the questions and answers you'd have to fill in on an ATM, and then they would receive money, and they had a lot of fun because they were getting $2,000, $3,000. It was quite fun. Here's one. This is from Crossword Labs. I used to do crosswords in the classroom, but this is truly an interactive one. So, to give money for something, it's going to be pay, right? So with these, you're not struggling with resources that are meant to be used in person. It's really a different thing to teach digitally. And I think because of the losses that both instructors and students, to some extent, experience in digital teaching, I think it's important to try to compensate by actually moving into the medium and embracing the digital nature of the medium and taking advantage of all of the actual fantastic resources out there, most of which are free. Some cost a little bit, but most of them are free. Anyway, that's my take on my experience in digital teaching over the last 2 years.